The Friendly Monster Under the Bed. Short story by Whispers of Wonder. Olivia was a brave little girl, or at least that's what everyone told her. She wasn't afraid of the dog, thunderstorms, or even the creaky old treehouse in her backyard. But there was one thing that made her heart race and her palms sweat: the space under her bed. Every night, as her mom tucked her in and turned off the lights, Olivia would pull the covers up to her chin and stare wide-eyed at the edge of her bed, waiting for something. She wasn't sure what exactly, but she knew it was there. A monster, probably. Isn't that where monsters always hide? One particularly moonlit night, as Olivia lay awake, listening to the wind whisper through the trees outside her window, she heard a sound. It wasn't a growl or a roar, or any of the scary noises she imagined a monster might make. It was more like a sniffle. Curiosity overcame fear, and Olivia slowly, carefully, peeked over the edge of her bed. What she saw made her gasp. There, huddled in the shadows, was indeed a monster. But not the kind Olivia had imagined. This monster was small, about the size of a teddy bear, with soft purple fur and big, sad eyes. And it was crying. "Hello?" Olivia whispered, her voice barely audible. The monster jumped, startled, and looked up at her with those enormous watery eyes. You can see me?" it asked in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. Olivia nodded, too stunned to speak. The monster sniffled again and wiped its nose with a furry paw. "I'm sorry," it said. "I didn't mean to scare you. I was just so afraid." This was not what Olivia had expected at all. "You're afraid?" she asked, incredulous. "But you're the monster. Ain't I supposed to be afraid of you?" The monster shook its head, its floppy ears swaying. "Oh no, I'm not that kind of monster. I'm Bernard, and I'm afraid of almost everything." Olivia couldn't help but giggle. A monster named Bernard, who was afraid of everything? It was too funny. Her laughter seemed to relax Bernard, who managed a small smile. "What are you afraid of?" Olivia asked, genuinely curious now. Bernard sighed a deep sound for such a small creature. "Oh, everything. The dark, loud noises, being alone, and especially the world outside this room. It's so big and scary out there." Olivia thought about this. She remembered feeling scared of new things too, like her first day of school or learning to ride a bike. But she had faced those fears. And now school was fun, and she loved cycling. "I used to be scared of a lot of things too," Olivia said. "But my mom always says that being brave doesn't mean you're never afraid. It means doing things even when you are afraid." Bernard's eyes widened. "Really? But how do you do that?" Olivia smiled. "I can show you if you want. We could be brave together." And so began an unusual friendship between a little girl and the monster under her bed. Each night, after Olivia's parents had gone to sleep, she and Bernard would embark on small adventures to help Bernard overcome his fears. Their first challenge was tackling Bernard's fear of the dark. Olivia dug out her old nightlight, a colorful carousel that spun slowly, casting shapes on the walls. "See," she whispered as Bernard watched the light dance. "The dark isn't so scary when you have a little light. And look how pretty the shadows can be." Bernard nodded, mesmerized by the moving shapes. "It's like a magical cave," he said softly. Next, they worked on Bernard's fear of loud noises. Olivia brought out her toy xylophone and showed Bernard how to make music. "Sometimes," she explained, "if you're the one making the noise, it's not as scary." Bernard tentatively tapped a key, then another, his face lighting up at the pleasant sounds. Soon, he was creating his own little tunes, his fear forgotten in the joy of music. As the nights went on, Olivia and Bernard tackled fear after fear. They built a fort out of blankets and pillows to show Bernard that small spaces could be cozy, not claustrophobic. They looked at Olivia's picture books of faraway places, showing Bernard that the big world outside could be wonderful and exciting. But Bernard's biggest fear, leaving the safety of the space under Olivia's bed, was proving to be the hardest to overcome.
"I don't know if I can do it, Olivia,"
Bernard said one night, his purple fur quivering.
"What if someone sees me? What if I get lost?"
Olivia thought hard. Then she had an idea.
"Wait here,"
she whispered and tiptoed out of the room. When she returned, she was carrying her Halloween costume from last year, a purple dragon onesie.
"Here,"
she said, holding it out to Bernard.
"You can wear this. Then, if anyone sees you, they'll just think you're a stuffed animal."
Bernard looked at the costume, then at Olivia, his eyes shining with gratitude.
"You'd let me borrow your costume?"
Olivia nodded.
"That's what friends do. They help each other be brave."
Slowly, carefully, Bernard put on the costume. It was a little big on him, but with some creative folding and a safety pin, they made it work.
"Okay,"
Bernard said, taking a deep breath.
"I'm ready."
Hand in paw, Olivia and Bernard crept out of the bedroom. They paused at the top of the stairs, Bernard trembling slightly.
"It's okay,"
Olivia whispered.
"We'll go one step at a time."
And they did. One step, then another, then another. By the time they reached the bottom, Bernard was no longer shaking. They explored the living room, where Bernard marveled at the size of the couch.
"It's like a mountain."
And the television.
"A window to other worlds."
In the kitchen, he was fascinated by the refrigerator.
"A cold cave full of food."
And the sink.
"A waterfall you can control."
Everything Olivia had always taken for granted was new and wondrous to Bernard. Seeing the world through his eyes made Olivia appreciate her home in a whole new way. As they were examining the curious contraption Bernard called a
"Toast maker,"
which Olivia knew as a toaster, they heard footsteps upstairs.
"Quick,"
Olivia whispered.
"Pretend to be a toy."
Bernard froze, doing his best stuffed animal impression, just as Olivia's mom walked into the kitchen.
"Olivia?"
her mom said, surprised.
"What are you doing up so late? And why do you have your Halloween costume?"
Olivia thought fast.
"I had a bad dream,"
she said.
"I came down to get a glass of water and brought my costume for comfort."
Her mom's face softened.
"Oh, sweetie, why don't I make us both some warm milk and then I'll tuck you back into bed?"
Olivia nodded, relieved her mom hadn't questioned the stuffed animal she was clutching. As her mom busied herself with the milk, Olivia whispered to Bernard,
"Don't worry, I'll get you back upstairs safely."
True to her word, once her mom had kissed her goodnight and left the room, Olivia helped Bernard out of the costume and back to his spot under the bed. But Bernard didn't immediately retreat to the shadows as he usually did.
"Olivia,"
he said, his voice filled with wonder.
"The world is so amazing. I never knew there were so many incredible things to see and experience."
Olivia beamed, proud of her friend's bravery.
"See, being brave isn't so hard when you have a friend to be brave with."
From that night on, Bernard's fears began to melt away. He started to look forward to the nightly adventures instead of dreading them. They explored every nook and cranny of the house, and Bernard even worked up the courage to look out the window at the yard beyond. As Bernard grew braver, Olivia found herself becoming more courageous too. She signed up for swimming lessons, something she had always been scared to try before. When it was time to give a presentation in class, she imagined Bernard cheering her on and found the strength to speak clearly and confidently. One night, as they sat on the windowsill, looking at the stars, Bernard turned to Olivia with a serious expression.
"Olivia,"
he said.
"I think it's time for me to go."
Olivia felt her heart sink.
"Go? But why? Don't you like it here?"
Bernard nodded vigorously.
"Oh, I do. I love it here and I'll miss you terribly. But there's a whole world out there and I think I'm finally ready to explore it. And it's all thanks to you."
Olivia felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she forced a smile. She knew Bernard was right. He had outgrown the space under her bed, just as she had outgrown her fear of the monsters she once thought lived there.
I understand, she said. But promise you'll visit sometimes?
Bernard hugged her tightly.
I promise. And Olivia, thank you for being my friend and helping me be brave.
The next morning, Olivia found a small purple feather on her windowsill, a parting gift from Bernard. She smiled, tucking it safely in her treasure box. From that day on, Olivia never feared the space under her bed again. Instead, when she looked at the dark gap between the floor and her bed frame, she smiled, remembering her friend and the adventures they shared. And on nights when she faced something scary, a big test at school, or just the regular worries that all children sometimes have, Olivia would take out that purple feather and remember Bernard's journey from a scared little monster to a brave explorer. She would remember how they had helped each other grow and learn, and she would feel a little braver about herself, because now she knew the truth that everyone, even monsters, get scared sometimes. But with a good friend and a little courage, you can overcome any fear. As for Bernard, rumors say that if you look closely on dark nights, you might catch a glimpse of a small purple creature exploring the world, marveling at its wonders, and helping other scared little monsters find their courage. And if you listen very carefully, you might just hear the tinkle of wind chimes, the sound of a brave little monster laughing with joy as he discovers the big, beautiful, not so scary world.